Hello, hi, and welcome to the Temple Daily Telegram Sports Podcast. We are back once again for another week of exciting football information, a little bit of tomfoolery as well. But
Hi,
for our new listeners out there, thanks for joining us. If you are if you are a returning listener, one of our very proud, very appreciated 7 listeners out there.
Thanks, Bob.
Yes.
Tom.
You are
Jane.
Yeah. How many more do we have? I don't know.
Steve.
There's Steve.
Jethro. Dennis.
Ooh, can't forget about Dennis.
And Gertrude.
Micah. I don't know.
I think that's 8 now.
That could be.
That's Micah's the new one. He's just chiming in right now.
But for our regular listeners, you are correct. I am not Josh Weaver.
Congratulations.
Yes. No, he, our normal podcast host, he is getting a rare but much deserved night off, working hard like the rest of us. So he will not be here, but do not be worried or troubled, because we are still here to hold down the fort.
We'll try to throw in some snarky comments just so you don't miss Josh too much.
That's true. We'll try to keep the sarcasm at the acceptable and going rate. So
if you're still listening, look forward to that.
I'm Daniel Zepeda. With me, Marcus Hood.
Howdy.
And Greg Willie.
What's up?
So we got the 3 amigos here tonight. We're going to try to bring you all the great stuff. If the weather has not convinced you otherwise, I'm going to tell you now. Texas high school football, the playoffs edition is here. So playoffs are here. Playoffs are live. And we get that started this week. So a lot of good information, a lot of good matchups to start off the bi-district round. And we're going to go ahead and dive on into it. So as far as your area teams are concerned, here are your Class 6A Division I bi-district matchups. We got Colleen Shoemaker versus Mesquite. They play in Mansfield. The winner of that game gets either Wiley or Prosper. Harker Heights is at Rockwell, also on Friday. Winner of that gets, Saxe.
Yes.
So that's a new one for me. So Saxe, or they'll get Allen. So one of the two. Moving on to Class 6A Division II, Temple at Longview, the highly anticipated matchup, depending on which side of the fence you end up on that. But that is going to be on Friday.
You might be outside the fence if you can't buy a ticket.
That's true. It might be a standing room only outside the fence. So winner of that one gets Dallas Jesuit or Garland. What is that? Lakeview Centennial.
That's right. That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. I'm only gonna say it once. I'll leave it up to you for the rest of that, Greg. Class 4A Division I, Lampasas, the Badgers, they are going to play Freeport Brazosport right down there on the coast. That's going to be Friday in Buda. Winner of that gets Rio Grande City Garula or Gonzales. So that's another mouthful there.
Talk about some road trips.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to all the miles I'm about to have to put on my car. So I might need some new tires.
So you're saying you want some of these teams to lose?
I'm saying whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. That's what I think that's the right way to say that.
Yep.
Moving on to Class 4A Division II, Salado gets Rusk in the first round. They play in Corsicana on Friday. Winner of that one gets Texarkana Pleasant Grove or Nevada Community.
That's a really long road trip. What's that?
That's
Las Vegas, apparently.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure where most of these are. That's why I use Google Maps, but that's...
Well, Nevada's kind of up in the north of the Metroplex a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Pleasant Grove is in Texarkana.
Which is about as far as you can go in Texas and still be in Texas.
So you just go north and just go until they use a different dialect. That's what I'm getting at. Just a different accent. Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds good to me. Moving on to Class 3A, Division I, a lot of our local area teams, Troy versus Teague. That's a Thursday game. That's going to be at Waco ISD. Winner of that one gets Crockett or, what is that, Anahuac. See, man, I'm learning
just
all
like
these.
It looks, Daniel.
Oh, yes, just like it looks. Got the pronunciation right next to it, so, okay. And then you got Camarillo versus West. That's on Friday, also at Waco ISD. Winner of that one gets a Diboll or Boona. Then Rockdale versus Grandview. Interesting one on that one. You've got the 2017 Class 3A1 champs versus last year's Class 3A1 champs. So that'll be interesting. That'll be Friday in Belton. Winner of that one gets Winnie East Chambers or Cold Springs Oakhurst. So you keep motioning at me, Marcus. I'm seeing.
Just pointing to where those towns are.
Oh, those directions? Okay. So forward, backwards, left, right. Okay.
You pointed really far for Winnie East Chambers. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's almost to Louisiana.
I do know where that
A lot
one
of these
is.
teams actually are. Yes.
I do know where that one is. I had to cover a game with them, so still halfway between our area and Winnie East Chambers is still nowhere close. So you still got to drive.
This just in, Texas is a big state.
Yes. Class 3A Division 2, Rogers versus Buffalo. That's going to be at Waco Connolly on Friday. Winner of that one gets Jacksboro or Henrietta. Class 2A Division 1, Bruceville Eddy gets Deleon on Friday in Whitney. Winner of that one gets Tom Bean or Bogota Rivercrest. So,
Sure that's not Bogota?
Bogota? No, I'm going to go with Bogota. That's what I'm going with.
Bogota's really far from here. There might be some illegal stuff going on too. I don't know.
Maybe. Holland, they've been perfect through the regular season so far. They're going to play Junction for the second straight year in the first round. They play also on Thursday, like Troy. They play in Johnson City, though. Winner of that one gets Three Rivers or Kennedy. Class 2A, Division 2, Granger versus Snook in Rockdale on Friday. Winner of that one gets Bruni or Runge. Runge. Golly. See, eventually we'll get it down by the end of this podcast.
We promised people. Daniel is a native Texan. He's from here.
I've lived all my life here. Don't speak the language well, apparently. So
By the end of his sports writing career, he's going to know how to pronounce every single city we mentioned.
There we go.
And more.
Josh, if you're listening, we need you back, buddy. All right.
It's just a good thing that Mejia is in one of our districts. So
That's true. See, that one I do know, but
Mejia and Waxahachie would totally throw them off.
Just
Never
like
heard
they
of them.
look.
yes. And then to wrap things up, TAPS Division 4, the area round. Central Texas Christian faces the Woodlands Legacy Prep. That game will be in Giddings on Friday. Winner of that one gets Munster Sacred Heart. Did I get that one right?
Did the Munster mash.
Oh man! All right, ending on a positive note. That's how you do it.
That's almost to Oklahoma. I
That is,
believe.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some potential second round matchups where we're going all over the state, east, west, north. Well, actually, east, south, north, and a little west.
Fire up that mileage account.
Yeah.
When you're in Central Texas, you go wherever you're sent. So a lot of good matchups there.
At least we're in the middle of everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not too far. Well, it's still pretty far.
It doesn't matter
Maybe
where you
farther.
are. That's true. So
We get to see a lot of the state.
True.
Here.
This is in Texas where sometimes you get a game like between like an El Paso school and maybe like a West Texas school, like Midland, and they might play in New Mexico just because it's like a more common.
you just might as well.
You might play in Hobbs, New Mexico.
Fortunately, we don't have to worry about those.
That's true.
But we do have to worry about some of these
Yes.
games.
Some of these we do. Some of these we probably should touch on, such as Temple at Longview. Now, a lot of people have been waiting for this one to finally come around, and it's here. So whether you've been looking forward to it, dreading it, whatever the case is, it's here. Greg, our Temple correspondent,
Yes.
What can we expect to see from the Wildcats? And, if they're going to pull off what most consider to be an upset, how are they going to go about doing that?
I think Temple seems to be embracing this matchup. I mean, it's something you can kind of, you've seen it coming for a while. Of course, Temple had a chance to not have to go to Longview, but when they lost to UM Midway a couple weeks ago,
Right.
We pretty much knew this was going to happen. And I mean, it doesn't set up that great for Temple as far as having a great chance of making a long playoff run. But I think what's neat about this matchup is, this is kind of like a matchup you would expect to see maybe round 3 or 4 as far as the quality of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
And yet Temple's just having to do it right away.
Right,
And
just right off the bat.
Right. And I think the tough thing about it is instead of meeting somewhere like College Station for a neutral site, you're having to go to Longview, and where they haven't lost since, I think, October of 2016. I think they've won 18 home games in a row, and they're just a very solid team. I mean, they're the defending state champions in 6A Division II. So they were 16-0 last year. They were state semifinalists the year before that. They're 10-0 this year.
Right.
And their average score this year is like 43-8. So they've got a great defense. defense. They've got a, by committee offense. Like the offensive numbers don't blow you away, but you just look and you've got like 6 guys that all have about 3 or 4 touchdowns each. Mm-hmm. And then the quarterback, Haynes King, is going to Texas A&M. He's actually graduating next month and is going to enroll early in college.
Just a lot of different weapons they can throw at you.
A lot of weapons. And I talked to their coach, John King, who's Haynes King's dad, and he said that last year they were a little bit more of an offensive team. The defense wasn't as good. This year it's like flipped around. Mm-hmm. Offense, they're doing what it takes to get by. And obviously they score 43 points a game, so they haven't been too bad. But 8.5 points a game. I mean, and I saw some film of these guys. They're very fast, fast, strong, athletic, sure tackling, aggressive. So one guy I wanted to mention was Tyshawn Taylor is their leading tackler. He's a senior linebacker. And Temple's coach, Scott Stewart, said he's the best high school linebacker he's ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And, we'll see once he sees him in person if he changes his mind or if he just confirms it. But he said he's like everything you would want in a high school linebacker.
I'm sure if you're Scott Stewart, you're kind of hoping he doesn't live up to the hype.
Yeah, exactly. You hope to be really disappointed by his performance on Friday night.
Right, yeah.
And just one other guy to mention, Sawyer Gorham Welch. That's a mouthful, but he's a 280-pound defensive lineman. He's committed to Oklahoma State for Longview. So,
okay.
But, I think what gives Temple a fighting chance in this game is a couple things. They have a really good offensive line, featured in the Thursday paper. Shameless plug.
There you go. And got to do it.
And they're blocking for Vance Willis at quarterback, Anthony Jackson, Samari Howard, and then you've got Quentin Johnston, who's been kind of quiet the last 4 games for Temple, but he's going to Texas. He's 6'4". He's got like 23 touchdowns in the last 2 years. So he is someone that if Temple's going to have a legitimate chance to hang in this game and pull the upset, I mean, Quentin Johnston's going to have to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
And it's been a few games since he's been able to do that.
But he's certainly capable of doing it.
And of course, Longview knows he's capable.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll shade a little more attention to him. They don't want him to just kind of wake up and break out here.
Right.
I think Temple has a chance to be in this game. I think the main sticking point would be all the young guys Temple is playing on defense. 2 freshmen starting, several sophomores, a lot of first-year starters. Can those guys go into Longview, hostile environment, long road trip, and just be ready to play against the caliber that Longview is going to bring? These guys
kind of avoid the shell-shocked moment.
But some Temple guys this week, like the seniors who were freshmen back in 16, they're just remembering when Temple played Manville in the 3rd round, and really no one gave Temple a chance to win that game. And Manville was like the team that everybody thought was going to win the state title, and they had about 10 Division I commitments, and Temple pulled the upset at Cowboys Stadium. So It's been done before. That was a neutral site. And that wasn't a defending state champion.
A little different.
A little different, but what a matchup. And I tweeted this out a little earlier. Temple number 3 all time in wins in Texas, and I think Longview is 7th.
Okay.
So you're getting 2 of the creme de la creme programs of all time.
So the top 10, done it for a long time. And I saw a stat on Twitter, so I guess I'll take it for what it's worth. But if it is true, it's pretty impressive. But I saw that apparently since 2001, Longview's only lost, it said, 8 times at home since 2001. So
about once every other season.
Yeah. So I mean, that might be true, might not. Who knows?
How many times?
8 times since 2001.
So that's 8 times in 19 years, a little less than once every 2 years.
I kind of think that's probably about as many games as Allen has lost total in defense.
That's true. That's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, but and then these teams haven't run into each other a lot as long as they've been playing and been really good. I think it's only like their 6th all-time matchup. I think they met like long ago a few times. I think Longview leads the series 3-2. This isn't really relevant. It's just something to mention. But they met in the playoffs in 2011, and Longview won 24-3. That was Mike Spradlin's first year as Temple's coach. So looks like it's going to be a nice weather game, just around 50, kind of clear. So weather shouldn't be an issue, and I'm pretty sure Longview's team is going to be an issue, though.
Yeah, well, you never know weather-wise what you're going to get at this point in the year, so it just adds to it.
Temple fans, be safe on the road. That's a long road trip, 4 hours.
There you go.
It's even longer coming back.
Well,
it could be if Temple doesn't play well.
We'll see how that goes. It could be a very energetic ride back. It could be a very reflective right back.
I
So
think Temple will give them a good shot.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be an interesting game.
Yeah.
We'll see what Temple's made of.
And the slight backstory, just to mention it very quick. Of course, last year a lot of people thought Temple kind of steered clear of playing Longview. I mean, they were in a situation where it actually benefited Temple to lose its season finale to Copperas Cove and therefore get a home game instead of going to Longview. That was, we don't need to go all into that, but that was pretty controversial at the time. Temple took a lot of backlash over that. I think there will be a little bit of hostility waiting for Temple when they get to Longview, just because, okay, now they get Longview a year later. But both sides, I asked the coaches, they said non-factor to them and their kids. It's not even something that's in their thought process.
It's just a storyline for the fans, really.
Storyline for
Fans and the media. It'll, at the very least, if you're a Temple fan, win, lose, or draw, you can put the whole Longview thing to bed after.
And you're going up
after
against
Friday.
the best, so you're going to see what you're made of, whether it's a win, a loss, or a blowout. Who knows?
Right. All right. Well, moving on. We got Salado playing Rusk. Salado 7-3. Eagles have won 4 out of their last 5. They're back in the playoffs after missing last season. That now makes it, I believe, 3 trips in the 4 years under Coach Alan Hare. So, Marcus, what do you think? What do you think of the Eagles' chances? What do you think of them going into this run?
I think the Eagles will win because they are playing another Eagles team.
Just like last week.
Yep. And this Russ team is also red and white, so it'll be a red Eagle.
Ooh.
So, but this will be an interesting matchup. I definitely like Salado's chances in this. Can't find too much on Rusk. I know they throw the ball more than Salado, but
Who doesn't?
really.
I think the 3 of us just tossing the office football around has,
But I think Rusk has a little bit more balanced offense, like probably, more 50-50. I don't know where the stats would lie totally because, again, I can't find much on them. They are 3-7 going into this game, but that doesn't mean a thing because they were 0-6. They were 0-6 to start the year. Then they, railed off 3 straight district wins before losing for the district champion, essentially. But the same thing happened last year. They started 0-6, won their by-district game against Robinson. So, you can't take this team and this record lightly.
No.
They've got some guys who have played probably a couple playoff games under their belt. Yeah.
You would think after that, though, they would have had a better start this year because you're playing the same teams, you have the same district.
Yeah.
But, I guess it's just kind of one of those things where they get off to a tough start. It gets them ready for the playoffs, gets them ready for district. And
Coach might need to rethink his preseason motivational speech to the team because it's very slow starting the last 2 years. But apparently he gets really good at it as the year goes on.
well, yeah, there's not much when your pre-district schedule is Longview, Allen. No, that's not really them.
That was like Mesquite Horn last year.
Right. No,
Yeah.
but they do play some teams. They did play Fairfield in non-district, and they lost that one. So there is that because you can compare that one. Fairfield is a team that Salado knows well.
Just beat them in their, what was that, their regular season finale
Yep.
game?
42-21. Good win, actually. Pretty good win for Salado.
Yeah.
Fairfield have been beating some pretty good teams in district.
That one was close, just Salado pulling away. But kind of going back to your point, Marcus, when you come to these games, I think we all want to make a big deal about, the 1 versus 4 matchup or the 7-3 team versus the, 3-7 team, whatever the case is. All of that pretty much goes out the window.
Yep.
If you're in the playoffs, you're there for a reason. Each road to the playoffs has been different, and we'll get into it later. But as Holland kind of learned last year, you don't overlook anyone, or else your season can come to a very quick halt much sooner than you want it to.
And you said, everyone's in the playoffs for a reason. Well, sometimes it's because they let a 4th team in.
That's true. Sometimes it is by default, and
But there are some good 4th place teams. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
we are leading the campaign to get rid of.
Look no farther than Harker Heights, which beat Midway about a month ago.
Sure.
Look no further than the district we're about to talk about in 10-3A1.
Yes.
You've got 2 state championship teams in the past 10 years. in Cameron, Yo, and Rockdale that didn't even win district.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and every year that district is a grind. But the great thing that those coaches love about that district is that it gets you ready for the playoffs. You already feel like you've played a handful of playoff games because the intensity's been so high in those games. So let's go ahead and
one passing note on Salado. Well, actually, it's a
No, you can't have a passing note.
It's actually a rushing note, not a passing note. You can boo again. I'm not. 3,000-yard rushers, right? I know stats are. We'll finish it up with some stats later on, but haven't they 3 guys go over 1,000 yards rushing? So I thought I saw
I don't
that.
think exactly.
Okay, maybe
1,000,
not.
but
Maybe
I mean, I think each one was over 900.
Okay.
Or whatnot,
Okay. I was thinking they might have all gotten over it.
Oh no, you're correct.
Okay. Well,
Greg is correct. Why would I second guess Greg? Why?
Pulling out a nugget there, just stat man over there asleep at the wheel. No, I'm kidding, Daniel.
No, I mean, yeah, you got.
But that's quite an. I mean, if they did that by the end of the playoffs, that would be one thing. But to do that through 10 games,
yeah,
I mean, you can only do that by being consistently good for a whole regular season. And Rook Brown, is it Hunter Turk,
and then
Reed
Vincent, yeah.
So props to those guys.
And really, the last time they had that kind of production from their 3 top running backs, and they do this every year, but was 2 years ago when they made that deep run into the fourth round, I believe.
Yeah.
So, that was a very reminiscent of that.
And clearly, props to the offensive line for blowing the holes open for
that is true. So those 10 3A1 teams, Troy, Yo, and Rockdale, they've got some pretty familiar matchups there. We see them every year. Someone's playing Teague, someone's playing West, someone's playing Grandview. It just seems like usually the same matchups and whatnot. Troy playing Teague. This is a rematch of last year. Troy beat Teague 35-21. This game was actually tied at halftime at 14, but before the Trojans finally kind of pulled away. And I was able to talk to Ronnie Porter earlier this week, and they don't want to do that again. They want to get out to a big lead. They want to keep foot on the accelerator and really kind of keep things going. They don't want to mess around at all because they got much bigger plans, much bigger ambitions than just getting a first round win. And then I imagine the same thing with Cameron Yo. The Yeomen have won 6 straight. They finished second in that 10 3A1 district. They're 9-1 on the year. Marcus or Greg, either one of you guys have anything on West? Any info? Anything?
West, they are.
And if you say it's a direction, I'm gonna lose.
Well, it is a direction, and it's actually in Central Texas,
and it's north of here.
Right.
I'm out of here.
They are led by a junior running back named Trey Janik, who has an average of about 7.5 yards per carry. I can't even read my notes. But I think he has over 1,000 yards, 1,100 or 1,105 yards on the year.
Okay.
But they do pass the ball too. I mean, they have 689 yards passing, 1622 rushing on the year. West does, and they'll match up okay with Yo, but I don't think Yo's going to be intimidated by one guy who has 1,100 yards rushing.
Well, especially when you got the defensive line they have, and then just the experienced and just athletic linebackers as well.
I was going to say, you just look at like the point totals for these teams. Cameron Yo's outscored opponents 491 to 191, so 300 points on the positive. West have been outscored 324 to 214, so they're minus 100 points plus. So
a little bit of a difference there.
They haven't. Both these teams are real familiar with playing at Waco ISD. It seems like both of them. Yo used to play like 3 playoff games a year there, it seemed like, back in their real, dominant run. So that's a pretty neutral site for both. But
and you can't really underestimate where West finished either, because they're in that district with Grandview, obviously, and they have
Whitney,
who actually ended up winning the district this year with a perfect season. Yeah, so you can't take their record and just throw out the window as well.
Right.
Yo coming off a tough, hard fought win over Lago Vista last week. Yeah. While Troy just kicking up with relaxing during the open date. Yo was actually doing some kind of hard work to beat Lago.
Yeah, and that's really what Troy really enjoyed about that. They had their idle week that very last week of the regular season, and they had already taken care of their business. They finished out district play perfect, locked up the outright district title, and in instead of having to spend most of that idle week, trying to see where they finished or where other teams would finish. They just got to work on some of the basics, and then once they found out their matchup, they just started working on that.
That's probably why Troy wanted a Thursday game. It's like, we've been off long enough.
Yeah, we're ready to get back into it.
Let's play as early as we possibly can.
Right.
Now you see that if Cameron wins that game, probably get Diboll in the next round, which would be 11-0. So that's coaches don't want their players to look ahead, but we can.
We can do that, and we can hype it up and see what happens, and then we'll see.
Diboll also not close to here.
No, it's
Near Lufkin, right?
Yeah, it's just south of Lufkin.
Yeah.
It's a suburb of Lufkin, if you will.
Listeners, come for the high school podcast, stay for the geography lessons.
Yep.
And when they play, they get the ball.
Boom.
Moving on.
I'm trying to get to the very bad Greg Willie puns before you get started.
Oh, man. We've already kind of talked about it, but Rockdale, Grandview, like we mentioned, matchup of the last two Class 3A Division I state champs. These two teams actually faced in the first round last year. Again, Grandview won 45-21. Wasn't really much of a matchup. Grandview this year, from what I've heard and seen, kind of maybe have taken just a slight step down. Maybe they're not as good, but at 9-1, they're not bad, to say the least. And then same with Rockdale. I think they're a little better than last year. Actually, maybe more than a little better. They've probably made some pretty good strides this year with their solid run, just overall offensive attack. The defense has come up at times, so
they might still be a year away. It sounds like with some of the juniors that they have.
And that's the thing. Yeah. Most of their top producers and their skill guys are juniors, so they'll have another year of experience.
Sounds like Holland a year ago.
Yeah, and now look at them. Yeah, now it's scary. So we'll see. I think this year the Rockdale and Grandview are a little more, coming a little closer to getting evenly matched. So we'll see how this one pans out. Jeff Miller's going to have those boys ready to go, and we'll see what happens.
And also, if you're just listening and you're looking for a game to go see nearby on Friday night, that's at Belton Tiger Field. So that would be a good one if you don't want to have to travel to Longview or anywhere like that.
Yeah, definitely. Not going to be one you want to miss. Class 3A, Division II, Rogers and Buffalo. Margus, I'm just going to let you just kind of discuss what's going on with Rogers. They started off the year 9-0.
Yep.
You think that's a good season, and they did. They have had a good season, but then they go into that final regular season game, they lose, and then all of a sudden they go from hopes of having the outright district title all the way down to the third seed. So what's going on there? And then it seems like there might be an injury issue as well.
Right. It was a very costly one loss on their season. Put them from the district champ to a three-way tie, where they are the last place team in that tie. So they go from first to third, and now it puts them in a matchup against an 8-2 Buffalo team. That's and first off, I'll talk a little bit about Buffalo. Buffalo, about 2,200 yards rushing, 1,800 passing. So they move the ball pretty well. They're balanced attack. And really, that's about all I know about them, besides the fact that they're Bison and they're out on Interstate 45. But as far as Rogers goes, that loss, not only was it costly in terms of giving them their first loss, dumping them to the third seed, they may have lost their quarterback, Heath Schiller, on a end of the game hit by a player who was called for the late hit. But unfortunately, it's one of those things where, he gets penalized, but your quarterback gets a season possibly.
It just doesn't feel like a fair trade.
Right.
Those aren't exactly offsetting penalties.
Yeah. No, not at all. And I'm not sure about the status of Schiller. It didn't look good. He's a tough kid. He's probably, if there's any way he can play, he's going to be out there.
Is it more upper body or lower body?
It was on his leg. I mean, he had
he's
an
a pretty big physical kid, isn't he?
Yeah, and during the, I will say one thing. During the handshakes, at least, all the other opponents, they came over to him. He was on the bench because he couldn't do the handshakes. They did come to him just to make sure he was okay, because, one kid's cheap shot or penalty shot isn't representative of a whole team. A kid makes a mistake. It happens. And I'm sure he probably feels bad about it now, knowing the outcome. And anyway, but with Schiller gone, you do have to worry about what Rodgers can do. And they probably weren't going to win that game even if Schiller had played healthy, because it was probably.
Didn't Clifton have a really good quarterback?
He's pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean, he can move the ball. He can throw the ball pretty well. Rodgers, though, I mean, they kind of beat themselves up. And I think Charlie Roan will tell you that was probably the worst game they played all year. The receivers were dropping open passes. The defense had some blown assignments, leaving some guys wide open. And they just weren't the Rodgers team that everybody had come to know this year that got them to 9-0.
You know, it's weird sometimes how the pressure works more like against the home team and the team that has more expectations. Like you would think we always want to be at home, but it's like knowing you just have to win that one more game to be undefeated district champions. And it's like for some reason you play tight, or you don't have the focus, or you get a little shook by a bad thing that happens.
Any minor distraction can throw you off.
Kind of reminds me of almost like Temple's playoff game at home last year against Mesquite Horn. It's like everybody thought Temple would win that game, but their best football wasn't played that night. So it's kind of a weird thing sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And I think if Rodgers can just hold up those things, they know what they did wrong. And I think if they don't play like that, even with a backup quarterback, they'll still be pretty tough to beat. Riley Dollinger, I believe, is the backup. Yeah. And, I mean, if he knows he's going to start, he's been taking reps all week. He's going to be ready for this game. And you got to give Rodgers the benefit of the doubt that, they're still a pretty decent team going into this playoffs. They've been ranked all year, or pretty much all year. So, we'll just have to see what a difference they are with Schiller or without Schiller, if that's the case.
Well, and Rodgers, they've outscored opponents 504 to 253 on the year. Buffalo 423 to 231. So
I remember last year, didn't Rodgers going to have a sort of a heartbreaking first-round playoff loss to Edgewood, I believe. So they've got that to sort of try to atone for in the first round this year.
And Rodgers is trying to advance past the bi-district round for the first time since 2014. So it's been a few years since they've gotten out of that first round, so it's definitely not easy. It's not easy to get into playoffs, and it's not easy to get out of that first round.
And I will say this, though, about Rodgers real quick. I mean, I know you talked about them kind of having trouble the last few years, but really we talked about going back to 2001. If you go back there and you look at Rodgers over the years, I mean, they've been one of the more consistent winning teams. I mean, they have a lot of 10-win seasons or more. Yeah. So, this is obviously a program and a community that knows how to win football games. So, losing a quarterback, if he is gone, it's not going to really faze them that much. They know how to win.
Right.
Those kids have some pride. They're going to go out there and play good football.
No doubt.
Real quickly, Bruce Villetti, they're in the playoffs for the second time in 3 years after not getting into the playoffs since 1985. So that was the big story a couple of years ago. But the Eagles have been rolling. They've won 8 straight. Nathan Quattlebaum, their star running back, he's put up over 2,200 yards rushing on the year. So they can run the ball. They've also proven that they can pass the ball. So they got a lot of ways they can attack you. Going up against De Leon in that first round, so that'll be interesting to see how they account in that game.
The Bearcats
looks like they could get potentially a battle of 10-1 teams in the second round if they play Bogota Rivercrest.
Yeah, no, things definitely get a little more hairy in that second round for sure. Holland. They're really hoping to keep on rolling. They had those big wins there at the beginning of the season over Mart and Crawford, I believe, and then they just ran pretty much roughshod through their district, claiming their second straight district title, third straight playoff appearance for the Hornets. They get Junction in this first round. Again, on paper, Junction doesn't look like it's going to be that much of a matchup issue. Last year, Holland beat them in the first round 63-12, and this year, it's a Holland team that's outscored opponents 477-83 for the entire season.
Pound for pound, best team in the area.
Yeah,
probably.
that's what we've been saying all season long.
No offense to the Troys and Bruce Villettis of the world, Rodgers, but Holland's been nothing but good. The whole year.
Yep.
They just keep on rolling, so it'll be interesting. And we've kind of talked about this. If you're Holland, you probably feel pretty first off, you don't want to get ahead of yourself because, like we mentioned, and Greg, you mentioned this in your tab story for the season preview. But head coach over there, Brad Talbert, he even told me this past week, he learned his lesson. You don't have to teach him twice. They're not going to look ahead. They're going to take it one at a time. But if you're the Hornets, you probably feel pretty confident about your chances through those first couple of rounds, maybe that third round. But man, the thing with 2A Division I is that, man, once you get kind of weed through some of those teams, then it's not like you get a decent team. It just goes straight to the juggernaut.
This Region 4, you've got undefeated Holland. You have defending state champion Mason, which I think started slowly, but they've kind of come on lately. Yeah. And then Refugio, who of course is a machine, 10-0. Right. They're always great. So, I mean, just to get out, it's kind of like if you can win the region, you're probably going to be. I don't know if you'd be favored to win the whole thing, but there's a good chance that
you probably should be, honestly, if you get through.
If you're good enough to get out of the region, I think you're good enough to win the state title.
Right.
That's probably a fair way to put it. So it's, Mason's already penciled in the game against Holland on Max Preps.
Oh, that's true. See, they are looking.
I don't even know why we're playing these first two rounds.
That's true. Yeah. They are looking ahead. I don't think Holland's gonna do that. No. But
Brad Talbert had nothing to do with what you see on Max Preps.
No, he did not. He's staying far away from that stuff. Class 2A, Division 2, Granger gets Snook. I think one of you guys were saying this is a rematch of their season opener. I'm guessing Granger won that game?
Yep.
Or what was
31-18.
Okay, so I mean a pretty respectable game there.
Yep. I will say, coaches and people say it's hard to beat the same team in a season twice. I think Granger's going to prove it's actually going to be pretty easy.
I think they say it's hard to beat a good team twice.
They just say a team.
Because some teams would be easy to beat no matter how many times you play. But
we'll leave it up to your own interpretation at home.
And another thing just about this game is, if you win this game, you get to play either 4-6 Bruni or 2-8 Runge.
Yes.
So
you get to pick.
Yeah, I think whoever Bruni, Runge, they kind of sound the
same. What are you thinking?
But this game could be tougher than maybe the second round game potentially if you're Granger or Snook. But Granger got to the third round of the playoffs last year,
right?
And they've still got a lot of those same core players.
Still got their main guys:
Carlos Reyna,
Thomas Rhodes, a couple of other some good receivers. So
they know what's going on.
Yep, they do. Well, should we do stats real quick since the regular season's over?
Mention CTCS real quick.
So, can't forget the Lions. Yeah. So the Lions, they get the Woodlands Legacy Prep. Again, that's going to be in Giddings on Friday. The CTCS, I believe, is 5-5 on the year. Really, they've just been when that offense is rolling, things have been going well. They rely a lot on their running back Charlie Hudson. He's done really well for them. I know originally they kind of wanted to be a little more of a passing team this year, but it didn't really look like that panned out. But at this point, whatever gets you into the playoffs, you stick with. You're not going to switch it up. So going against the Woodlands Legacy Prep. If they win, their next matchup is already set with Munster Sacred Heart. So you already can kind of prepare for that, I guess. You don't want to look ahead too much, but at least you're not left in limbo. So
I looked at, there is a common opponent for CTCS and the Woodlands Legacy. They both played Hallettsville Sacred Heart.
Okay.
And the Woodlands lost by 19 in the season opener to Hallettsville Sacred Heart. And then just this last week, CTCS lost by 16. Wow. So, even though those games were played a couple months apart, they're pretty common as far as how they did against a good Hallettsville Sacred Heart team. So,
pretty
do with that what you will.
Yeah. Well, again, we have the luxury of, just calling out numbers and just, looking for trends like that, but that is true.
And just the other 12 6A teams, we have Shoemaker playing Mesquite, which seems like a pretty good matchup. It'll be a big test for Shoemaker. They've had a really good season. They gave Temple everything they wanted. They, beat Belton. They, played Midway tough for a long time. That's a team that I think is kind of dangerous. Just they're so athletic on offense and defense. Mesquite's out of that, pretty tough district with Longview and Rockwall and all those guys. So that'll be interesting to see if Shoemaker can continue to, maybe break through and go to the second round of the playoffs.
Right. Winner of that one gets Wiley or Prosper.
Right. And then a tougher matchup for Harker Heights, the fourth place team having to go up to Rockwall, which is a very high scoring bunch, has a receiver going to Ohio State who's a stud. So anyway, that's what we got for 12-6A, and then just real quick, Belton finishes 3-7.
Yeah, not the best for the Tigers this year, but
that was the last hurrah for Sam Skidmore as head coach of the Tigers after 3 years. I believe he finished 16-16, and now he focuses on being the athletic director.
Right, he'll focus on that.
And he's got to hire 2 new head football coaches,
one for each of the new high schools,
Lake Belton. So there you go. New era for Belton football about to begin. So.
Yeah, you talk about a guy that's been spread pretty thin over the past few months, Sam Skidmore, but great guy, always good to work with. All right, your finalized regular season stats. We'll keep the stats going through the postseason, obviously, but as far as the regular season, here are your area rushing leaders. Nathan Quattlebaum, out of Bruceville Eddy, he finished the season with 2,201 yards rushing and 27 touchdowns. Zach Hrabachik out of Troy, 1,722 yards, 26 touchdowns. Cameron Valdez out of Rockdale, 1,537 yards, 26 touchdowns. Clay Cooper out of Holland, 1,531 touchdowns. Not touchdowns.
Almost.
1,531 yards, 22 touchdowns. And then wrapping up the top 5 is Carlos Reyna out of Granger, 1,349 yards, also 22 touchdowns on the year. So a lot of good runners around this area, a lot of guys that can make things happen. So just good playmakers overall. Moving on to your top passers in the area. Jace Robinson, he pretty much led the area in passing from start to finish. He is out of Rockdale, 2,343 yards passing, 33 touchdowns on the year. That leads, I would imagine, probably any other player in the area. Braden Brashear out of Cameron Yo, he had 2,301 yards on the year, 29 touchdowns. Vance Willis out of Temple, 1,664 yards, 18 touchdowns. Zane Spin from the Holland Hornets, 1,584 yards, 15 touchdowns. And then wrapping it up is Trapper Enzor from Bruceville Eddy, 1,378 yards passing and 17 touchdowns so far. He'll look to increase his numbers as Bruceville Eddy starts their playoff run on Friday. All right, and then your top receivers for the regular season: Kobe Young from Cameron Yo, not Young, man. It's late, guys. I'm tired. I'm not used to talking this much, so there we go, Josh.
You're gaining new appreciation for Weaver's job being the MC and host of this thing, aren't
you?
The
Weave, man, we need you back, buddy. Kobe Young out of Cameron Yo, 944 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns on the season. Keyshawn Raven out of Rockdale, 865 yards, 11 touchdowns. Braden Lilly out of Academy, 728 yards, 5 touchdowns. Quentin Johnston from Temple, 684 yards, 7 touchdowns. And another Cameron Yo guy, Zachorian Spikes, 652 yards and also 7 touchdowns. Guys, I'm gassed. I think I need to go home and and ice my vocal cord.
And we're just sitting at a desk.
That's true. I'm already out of breath. That just shows you how bad of shape I am.
Enjoy the playoffs.
Well, it's been real, people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll continue to bring you great stuff. We'll have reporters at Holland's game and Troy's game on Thursday. And then on Friday, we will have games writers at Temple, Rogers, Cameron Yo, and Rockdale here in Belton.
And remember, you can read the paper, you can go to the website, you can follow us on Twitter.
We're all over the place, man. If you have not heard of us by now, then I don't know. There's nothing more we can do for you.
And if you're listening to this, you probably have. So thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Daniel Zepeda for Marcus Hood and Greg Willie. We'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.